Jesus said, "Can the blind lead the blind? Shall they not both fall into the ditch?" Who can we trust as a reliable guide through life? Or to put it another way, who should we listen to if we want to understand our place in this world? A university for many is a time of new freedoms, and therefore of thinking through in a new way our place in this world. Will we pour our energies into a political cause, into music, into academia, romance, tiddlywinks? None of us makes those decisions in a vacuum. We may think we are listening only to the voice of our own heart, but of course to a very large degree, our hearts simply repeat back to us what they've heard from others. When it comes to our sense of value, for example, most of us feel about as valuable as someone else tells us we are. And so the question isn't really whether we will listen to others. The only question is who we will listen to as we try to work out our place in this world. And plenty of people, both on social media and in what I still think of as real life, will offer us their opinions, often without being asked, and often with the greatest conviction. X, would go silent overnight if people really took to heart the opening verses of our second lesson this evening. Judge not, and ye shall not be judged. Condemn not, and ye shall not be condemned. Forgive, and ye shall be forgiven. Or to put it positively, give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, and shaken together, and running over, shall men give into your bosom. For with the same measure that ye meet withal, it shall be measured to you again. It seems to many that we live in a particularly judgmental culture, which doesn't really matter when they are telling us that we're wearing very much last season's hat, or that we're peeling oranges all wrong, or whatever it is the internet is weighing in on these days. But when it gets more personal, to the issues of who we are, and what we're worth, and what we're for, well, then it matters very much that we are listening to voices that know what they are talking about. Our culture is highly intolerant of people who do not hold the socially acceptable position on every topic. But am I imagining it, or does the socially acceptable position keep changing? Which might leave us wondering, is there any solid ground to build our lives on? Who should we listen to if we want to understand our place in this world? And Jesus gives us an answer, in two parts. First, listening to most people is like the blind leading the blind. In the middle of our second lesson, he says this, "And he, Jesus, spoke a parable unto them. Can the blind lead the blind? Shall they not both fall into the ditch?" I hope the situation for those living with sight loss has improved somewhat today, with guide dogs and tactile paving slabs and technology of various kinds, though no doubt there is more to do. But blind people of Jesus' day would be highly reliant on a trustworthy, sighted friend or relative to help them get about. The only thing I can think of that was easier in those days was that they didn't have to dodge silent electric cars. And Jesus says elsewhere that left to ourselves, we are all spiritually blind, unable to see the big truths about who God is and who we are, unable to understand our place in this world. And if we all, by nature, are spiritually blind, to listen to almost anyone else for direction is like the blind leading the blind. In short, it won't end well. Inevitably, we turn out like those we listen to. As Jesus says, the disciple is not above his master, but everyone that is perfect or prepared, and when a disciple has been fully trained up, he shall be as his master. We turn out like the people we listen to. Listen to people as spiritually blind as ourselves, and will turn out spiritually blind. Follow such a person through life, and it won't end well. We say, but I'm not blind. I'm very discerning. I can see everything that is wrong with your life. But being quick to see other people's faults doesn't make us any less blind about our own position. Jesus says, and why beholdest thou the mote, the little speck of sawdust that is in thy brother's eye, but perceivest not the beam, the whacking great bit of 2x4 that is in thine own eye? It certainly makes you a very bad eye surgeon. How canst thou say to thy brother, brother, let me pull out the mote that is in thine eye, when thou thyself beholdest not the beam that is in thine own eye? You can picture the scene. Dr. Plankface will see you now. The guy with the great big thing sticking out, no thank you. I think I'll just blink a lot and hope for the best. Thou hypocrite, cast out first the beam out of thine own eye, and then thou shalt see clearly to pull out the mote that is in thy brother's eye. Left to ourselves, humanity is a blind, judgmental mess. Perhaps it should say that on the login page for Twitter. X. And welcome to X, a blind, judgmental mess of humanity. Listen to us if you want to know who you are and what you are worth and what you're for. Is that really our best option? To listen to people as blind as ourselves as we try to work out our place in the world? The Bible suggests we can do better. Listening to most people is like the blind leading the blind, but more briefly, second, Jesus' words are like a rock to build our lives on. Just after the passage we had read, Jesus tells a story of one man who built his house on a solid foundation of rock, and a second man who built his house on loose soil or sand. They both did all right until the rain fell and the floodwaters rose. And then a great difference was discovered between their strategies for getting through life. One house stood and one fell. Don't you want to be the one with the house on the rock? When the trials and tribulations of life rise, and in particular when God's judgment falls, don't you want to be sure that your house will stand firm? Jesus says that the man with his house on the sand represents someone who hears Jesus' words but doesn't do them. Jesus' words are drowned out by all the other voices in their life. Building your life on the constantly shifting sands of socially acceptable opinion will end with a flat house. And following a guide as blind as ourselves will end in a ditch. But Jesus says that the man with his house on the rock represents someone who hears Jesus' words and puts them into practice. Jesus claims to be not just some wise teacher pointing you to some truth out there that may help. He points to himself. The solid ground amidst the shifting sands of socially acceptable opinion is the words of Jesus. The voice to listen to, if I want to understand my place in the world, is the voice of Jesus. It is an extraordinary claim. But Jesus says that my path through this life and my destiny in the next all hinges on what I will do with his words. Left to myself, I am blind, and almost anyone else I could ask to guide me through life is blind too. But as the God who made me, Jesus can see who I am and what I am worth and what I am for. And listening to his words is the way to understand our place in this world. It doesn't mean the rains won't fall and the floods won't rise, but it does mean the house will stand. Amen.